document you have now is posted in PDF. It's been there for a few days. I emailed you guys. So if you have questions, let me know. How's the break? Good break? Fun? Work?
Yeah.
Me too. A little slower pace, a little less. But, you know, you get the break, when is it, May 20th or something, that's when it starts. That's when you get to try to make some money in the summer. Or start a full-time job. Or go to the beach. With your feet, right? Whatever. Questions. So we got, what, 7, 8 weeks left, right? So now you're shifting into overdrive, right? You don't kind of slack off, you move it forward. You go a little faster, a little harder, right? Because then you get a nice break from classes, unless you're taking summer classes. Oh, my key is in the back of the room. Any questions? I know there are a bunch of handouts in the back there. One of them is for the next chapter, which will start Thursday. I just wanted to get it to you today, since I had it done. Okay, and I put a copy back there and emailed you guys yesterday about the plan for the rest of the semester. Hopefully we'll be able to keep to that plan. We'll do the best we can. We'll cover what we can. I've got some room for slack on chapters 22 and 24, so if we don't get to everything there, it's okay. So we'll see how it goes. Other questions? The extra credit assignment, I saw this morning, 15 or 20 minutes ago, most of you had put solutions or put responses in the Dropbox, some hadn't. I'm expecting to give you App 5 Thursday, after you submit App 4. It'll be on revenue recognition, Chapter 18. It'll be, a big chunk of it will be what we're going to cover today. Construction accounting, contract accounting. And I also expect to do an extra credit assignment for Chapter 18, likewise, to get it to you Thursday. Because I don't want to wait until the end and pile a bunch on the end, so the more we can do sooner, the better off I think everybody is. Plus, I think you'll learn from these things. One comment on the extra credit. I noticed 5 or 6 of you did not save the file to the right name. I don't know what to do. You will lose credit. You can only get 2 points on the thing. So not doing the right file name knocks you down to 1 point, even if everything else is perfect. I don't know what else to do. I have informed you multiple times. You don't want to learn from your mistakes? Don't learn from your mistakes. You want to lose credit? Lose credit. Whatever you like. It's up to you. I'm really trying to make a point about learning, because again, last time, and I'll get off my horse here and get into the materials, but if you do not learn from your mistakes, if you do not follow instructions, if you do not pay attention to what your supervisor says you need to do, it's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you in jobs. It's going to hurt you in your career. It'll hurt you with your wife. Sorry. There's kind of the, it hurts you not following instructions in your job, especially in accounting. There's a lot of compliance. You got to follow the rules. So anyhow, I hope after this I will never see an assignment in this course, in this semester, where the file name is wrong, where there are catchable spelling errors, where there are things that you guys should at this point in the semester working with me know to pay attention to. All right, and if you think there's a better way for me to communicate to you that this is important, let me know. I don't know what else to do. David, you had a question?
Yeah, in the feedback, you usually tell them that you put the name of the file wrong, like you say the file wrong.
Yeah.
You usually warn us, right? That
I've warned you in writing multiple times, and you lose credit for it.
In general, like purpose.
I'm not sure what point you're making. I point out if you've saved the file name wrong. The first few assignments I didn't take off for it. It was more like, please get the hang of this. At this point, I don't know what else to do. It certainly affects your grade. So, but yeah, if I haven't pointed it out sufficiently, folks, tell me how else I can do it. Okay? Other questions? Bless you. Questions, comments, anything? All right, so we did a chunk of Chapter 18, revenue recognition, the chunk that's higher up on the agenda here. We did most of this the last class before break. And what I want to get into first today, the biggest, most significant most complicated topic we get into in this course, in this chapter, is contract accounting, which is listed here. I originally had the date there, March 28th. It is the 29th. Long-term contracts. Okay, so I want to get into that. I did send out an email yesterday with Excel telling you there are Excel files posted. I brought copies today. You've got all the computations in there. So what I want to do is go through a few of the slides for background. Hopefully you've had a chance to read through the materials, the textbook, work through the problems, and that's what we're going to do first today. Okay, so as you can see here, the title of this is Revenue Recognition Before Delivery. Let's just take a step back and quick review. When we're talking about revenue recognition, what does that mean? Revenue recognition. When we recognize something in accounting, what does that mean? What does recognition in accounting mean? Record. Put it in the journal. Record an entry. Excellent. Record revenue. When do we record revenue? The general concept. Under GAAP. After you've earned it. This is great. You guys are all over this stuff. Recognize revenue when earned. When is revenue earned? Go ahead.
Once you perform duties or contractually or like service.
You provide the service, you provide the goods, right? You have done what the agreement says you're going to do. And the agreement may be informal, but customer calls and says, I want these goods. You ship the goods out. You have earned the revenue, right? And you know, I'm not even getting technical GAAP. I'm getting more conceptual, right? Just kind of basic. We've earned the revenue when we deliver, okay? This says revenue recognition before delivery. What's the problem with that in GAAP principle, in GAAP theory? Are we allowed to recognize revenue before we earn it? Which is what this is sort of implying, right? Before delivery. Right? Alex, you had your hand up? Were you? Okay. Can we recognize revenue before goods are delivered? Under what circumstances? Now you guys have read the material, right? So what are we getting at in this context? The context here is long-term contracts. The context here is we are providing something that takes more than 1 year to complete. Okay? It says here, long-term construction contracts, but it's really any type of long-term contract. If we have an agreement that's going to take 2 or 3 or 5 years, you could say 4 also, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, pick your number of years, more than 1 year, then the question is, are we, under GAAP, allowed to recognize revenue a little bit at a time, some in each year, or we have to wait until we fully finish the contract? Okay? What GAAP is getting at here with this area is the matching principle. I'm going to write that up here to remind you the matching principle is really important. Matching principle. What GAAP says, black mark. What GAAP says is if it's going to take more than 1 year to earn the revenue, to deliver the goods, then we should, under GAAP, recognize some of the revenue each year to satisfy the matching principle. What is the matching principle? Go ahead, Tom. Excellent. The expenses that we incur should be matched against the revenue we earn in the same income statement periods. Right now, it's going to take us years to complete a contract. We are going to be spending money. We are going to be incurring expenses throughout the time. So if we're incurring expenses in years 1, 2, and 3, but don't recognize the revenue until year 3 or year 4, the matching is off. The income statement will not reflect proper comparison of revenues and expenses. Does all make sense? That's why for long-term contracts, GAAP has said what's preferable to use, it's what's called the percentage of completion method, as opposed to the completed contract method. Okay, under the percentage of completion method, this is background, we're going to skip there. Under the percentage of completion method, we need a procedure for saying how finished is a contract. So let's say we have a 3-year contract. We're gonna do some in year 1, some in year 2, some in year 3. Okay? The idea under GAAP is we're gonna recognize some of the revenue in year 1, some in year 2, some in year 3. So far, so good? Not too difficult to grasp the concept, right? Now the question is procedurally, how do we determine how much revenue to recognize in each of the 3 years? We don't just say, like we would for straight line depreciation, we're just gonna take the total contract price and split it in 3. We don't do that because the work is not necessarily gonna work that way. It's not necessarily true we're gonna do 1/3 of the work in each of the years. So there are multiple methods for figuring out how to do this, how to allocate the revenue, which is all we're doing here. How do we allocate the revenue? Multiple methods. The simplest and the most commonly used is called the cost-to-cost method. I'll just put it down here. And this is the method we are going to cover. The cost-to-cost method. Okay? And this slide tries to summarize how we're going to do it, and then we're going to do problem 18.6 in a minute and illustrate how we do it procedurally with numbers. We're going to look each year at the costs incurred to date. So year 1, we'll have 1 year's worth of costs. By the end of year 2, we'll have 2 years of cumulative costs. By the end of year 3, we'll have 3 years of cumulative costs. Depends on how long it takes to finish the contract, right? We're going to divide whatever the costs incurred to date are, whenever we are in the contract, wherever we are, year 1, 2, 3, by the most recent estimate of the total costs, So we're saying, how much have we spent? How much do we expect to spend in total? And we're going to say that is the percent that this thing is completed. Logical? Making sense? Then we're going to say, we estimate a certain, let's focus on revenue, not gross profit. We estimate we've got a $5 million contract. So if we finish 20% of the job, we would recognize 20% of the revenue. 20% of 5 million would be $1 million. That's what this says. The percentage complete times the estimated total revenue is how much revenue to be recognized to date. Once we get to year 2, though, we will have already recognized some revenue in year 1. So what we have to do then is subtract out the revenue we recognized in year 1 to get the revenue to be recognized in year 2. Total revenue to be recognized minus the revenue we already recognized is the revenue we need to recognize. That's it, procedurally. Now, once you start putting numbers on it, you can see how it works. And I know that's when you say, all right, that's when we start to make mistakes. It's conceptually easier to understand than to apply because you've got to pay attention, close attention to details. Let me back up here for a second. Under GAAP, companies must use the percentage of completion method virtually all the time. Okay, but here are the criteria. When estimates of progress towards completion, revenues, and costs are reasonably dependable. In other words, we have a good idea how this contract's going to work.